I'm watching a video that Leila took at her daughter's dance recital. In it, a group of young girls, maybe 11 or 12 years old, are on stage, dressed in flowing red chiffon costumes and black shoes. They're moving to an Arabic love song, each step part of a carefully choreographed dance. If you look closely, on the left in the second row, there's a girl wearing glasses, and what stands out is how committed she is to every movement. There's this incredible mix of struggle, passion, and grace. She might be offbeat here and there, but she doesn't give up. When a turn is too tricky, she adds an extra motion to get herself in the right direction. You can feel how hard she worked to learn this routine, and despite the challenges, she finishes beautifully. What you wouldn't know just by watching is that this young girl has cerebral palsy, a condition that affects a person's ability to control their muscles. There was a time she couldn't be left alone without stumbling or falling. And now here she is, up on stage, dancing with all her heart, defying the odds. In this episode, I wanted to understand how she got here, how she moves with such confidence and passion. So I reached out to the woman behind the camera, her mother, Leila Nashabe, to learn about the sacrifices, the work, and the love that made this moment possible. I recorded this interview with Leila in July 2023, just days after Maya's show. Now, almost 2 years later, she's currently preparing for another recital and dancing her way through her teenage years.
You can't believe it. So when she finished the show, she said, "Mom, did you and Teta cry happy tears?" It's like, I didn't cry this year because I don't have a reason to cry. You were just so wonderful. So she's our blessing.
Progress can feel impossible. From having an autistic brother to raising a deaf son with cochlear implants or working with families as a neurotherapist, I've seen how overwhelming it can be to feel like nothing is changing. But life has taught me that growth is always within reach. Every brain can learn and adapt no matter the diagnosis, and believing in someone can shape their future. You see, you have a choice: to live a life weighed down by limitations, or to embrace a life filled with possibility. And I'm here to help you make that choice by sharing stories of caregivers and experts that have changed my life, the tools I wish I had known, and the conversations that have questioned my beliefs. I'm Leila, and this is All Brains Grow. Hi, Leila.
Hi, Lulua.
So I've been wanting to talk to you maybe for a full year now, because when I got this idea of podcasts, you were top of the list.
I'm humbled.
Because you remind me of my mom. And
It's a great honor.
when Leila was 36, she became pregnant with Maya, shortly after giving birth to twins. Her body was still recovering, and after running some prenatal tests, the doctors discovered that Maya had a genetic condition called balanced translocation, where 2 chromosomes split evenly. Despite the uncertainty about possible genetic deletions, Leila and her husband chose to continue the pregnancy, and Maya was born on the 13th of September in 2011.
Everything was fine. Everything was normal. When she was born, there was nothing visible. But we were always watching out to see if there were any milestones she could have missed. But we don't know what they could have been. So we were always observing her, but not knowing what to expect or where we are going. So in general, she was a very quiet baby, not very talkative. She didn't move very much. She couldn't move her body so much, And when she turned between, I think, 8 months, I think, when she was supposed to be sitting, she couldn't sit. We realized, her body was very, it was very fluid and stiff. Fluid meaning, she'd move with us, but very stiff. She couldn't move her arms. She didn't crawl, and when she'd move with her bum on the floor, it's like she's completely paralyzed from up.
Leila and her husband began psychomotor and speech therapy for Maya when she was 9 months old. At the time, Leila was also managing a startup and also taking care of her twins who were toddlers. She was exhausted. She juggled work, therapy appointments, and caring for her children, all while ensuring Maya received the therapies she needed.
I'd be picking up the kids, I'd come from work, I'd take Maya to the therapies, and then once I was sitting at the speech therapy session, and I asked her, I said, what are you doing? What are you telling her? What are you saying to her? She doesn't talk. She doesn't walk. She's not moving. She doesn't respond. I was a little bit edgy because I was just so frustrated. And what are we doing? Coming here, doing all these things. She's crying. She's in pain. I'm exhausted. And what's happening? And then she looked at me. I remember she held my hand. She says, Leila, it's okay. I know you're not seeing a result. And I know this is after like a year. And I know you're not seeing any movement. And I know you don't see it. But just imagine her brain as a sponge. And this sponge, everything you give it, it's going to absorb. It could release this data that she's absorbing, and it could not. We don't know. And I said, when will I know? She said, after 7. I looked at her, I said, for me, everything was short term. And, everything you expect is, 1 + 1 is 2. And then they start walking, and then they start teething, and then they start eating. But with Maya, everything was uncertain. And there was...
So she tells you after 7.
She said after 7 years, and she was a year and a half. And she said after the child is 7, and when the brain is fully developed and we can understand the full diagnosis, we will see what she's able to implement from what she grasped in these therapies for 7 years. And so we went to every neurologist you can think of, every genetic doctor you can think of, and this is before she was 2, because we thought it was just genetic and her body and her posture or her movement or her muscles.
Slowly but surely, when Maya was 2.5, she began to show signs of walking and talking by mumbling sounds. Leila attributes a lot of Maya's progress to her toddlers, Maya's older brother and sister, who Maya adores and imitates constantly.
Every time we'd go to the therapies, we'd have to implement them at home a few times a week. We'd do a schedule. And she would never respond. And then once I took her sister, who's a year and 3 months older than her, she came to one of the therapies. And she, her sister, emotionally, I think we were not there for her, her brother and sister, as much as we were there for her. And so our kids would always try to help when they would realize what was going on. So she told Maya, let's do it together in the therapy session. So she was maybe 3 or 4, and so the therapist said, Leila, you have a miracle, and you have a silver lining, and you have 2 siblings, أكبر منها, in a very short, ما كتير أكبر منها. Let her imitate them, because this is what younger kids do. They always imitate the older ones. So for like months, how we'd go into the shower, we'd all crawl to the shower, we'd all crawl to the bathroom in the house. So we started doing things, all of us at home, as a fun activity for her to do her exercises, and she would always imitate them in everything, which is a beauty in how the family dynamic turned out.
But in the same year, everything changed for Leila and her family.
She had her first seizure, which really shook us off our grounding. So when she was 2.5, we were in a car dealer shop, I remember, and she was on my lap, and we don't know what it was, whether it was the light or the sound or something, and it happened. My kids were there. They were nearly 3.5. My husband was there, the shop owner. It was really insane. We turned her around, and then it didn't stop. So some stranger from the shop took Omar in a car and drove him immediately to the hospital. And by the time he got there, she was completely blue. We caught her just in time. They gave her Valium, and she woke up. So this was our new reality. So this is part 2. And when we realized she had the seizure, then we shifted, okay, then it's neurological based and not genetic and not muscle. But this is when the fear really kicked in. So
you're gonna make me cry.
I don't need to. She hasn't had a seizure in a while, yeah, and we just want to wean her off the medication. But it's the pain of those years. So she had the seizure. I'll say something funny now. So I ran down the street with the kids. I just threw my kids to my neighbor. She didn't know what's going on. The decani of the neighborhood saw me running, got his motorbike and took me down. And when I got there, she was awake. And then my sister called me, and I was neurotic. I was going crazy. She drives down from the mountains going, I said, what are you doing here? She said, you didn't hear your voice. So Maya, our daughter, is fine. She's awake. She's confused because she wouldn't talk to him. And she's just looking at us like, why am I in the hospital? Why do you look like this? We calm down, and for us to face this new reality.
You can pause.
And then we went home. And then they put her on medication. But the medication was so hard on her. So later on, many doctors said this was too harsh of a medication on her. She was just 3. We had to do a test for her kidneys every month. And I felt we're going somewhere further from where I expected. Anyway, we changed doctors. We spoke to many to get a different diagnosis and different feedback. And then we reached out to her pediatrics neurologist, who I swear by, Dr. Mohammed Miati, who I respect and I love tremendously. And we flew to Duke Hospital in North Carolina, me and Rima and Maya, when she was 3, to really understand what's going on and get a full diagnosis. And we saw everybody, every single specialist you can think of, from genetic to specialist to all the therapists. And they gave us her diagnosis, which she has a mild form of CP, ataxia. She's not aware of her space, she has a balance problem, and she really did. So for even until now, Maya's never alone, but at the very beginning, until she was 7 or 8, she was never left alone for a second, because she would always walk and bounce into something. So if she was sitting here, automatically your reflex would be to grab her anywhere.
The beauty in this story is that Maya was born into a very special family. Leila's mother-in-law, Maya's grandmother, Dr. Vali, is the founder of a school for children with special needs in Lebanon called Step Together. Dr. Vali came to Lebanon in the 1960s as a pediatrician, and her journey took a significant turn during the early days of the Civil War. After losing her husband and with 3 toddlers to care for, she opened a nursery and diagnostic center. This eventually became one of the most beautiful and accepting communities for individuals with disabilities in Lebanon. Located in a serene, environmentally protected area, surrounded by mountains and trees, Step Together is home to many kids like Maya. My own brother, Milo, spent his summers going to their summer camp.
And the beauty and the karma of our angel Maya is that she was born into this family. So as if her grandmother opened the school 40 years ago for this little girl to come now. I don't see it in any other way. This is my story, this is Maya's story, this is the whole family story.
Hearing her say, "This is the whole family story," brings tears to my eyes because I can relate to that. Waiting for that official diagnosis of cerebral palsy wasn't just a wait for Maya's parents, but also for the rest of the family, especially those who are working in the field. I asked her how having that clarity in the diagnosis made a difference in her life.
The diagnosis, it's a good question, and I jump off it. But the diagnosis نفستنا, all of us, and it kind of sat us down, it grounded us, it gave us meaning. Sometimes some doctors still tell me, listen, her main symptoms are the genetic deletions that could translate to some sort of CP symptoms. But some doctors like to take it back to the genetic and some to the neurology. And I realized for many years, and maybe this is good for some moms to understand, for many years I would still continue going to see some other doctors. A new neurologist, I'd go see him. A new genetic doctor, I'd go see her. A genetic lab technician who's a friend of a cousin of the family who doesn't see patients saw me. I kept going more and more. And then I realized, why am I doing this? More information is not going to answer more questions. And more scientific descriptions and enzymes and deletions is not going to clarify or justify or I don't know.
Were you looking for
more solutions, maybe ما بعرف. Or maybe I was looking to see if I should expect anything in the next stage or when puberty hits or adulthood, because it's so many different things we don't know. بس أكيد ريحني الdiagnosis لأن خلاص I knew this arm is broken or which bone is broken and how we should heal it and how long is the healing phase يعني. But I stayed in my startup business till Maya was 5, and then I realized with all this, with the therapies, with the salaries for the startup, and with the events, and it was a new business. It was really I don't know what I did to myself. I was like self-lynching now if I look back. And the kids were toddlers, and we just had to be there all the time. You know, I take the kids to the office, and Maya was never walking, and there was always somebody with us. Because I don't mean to sound vain, but I had wonderful help. So for me, this is huge. When you have someone that you can rely on, and that you know she's your conscience in your absence, and you trust her blindly. And for me, it made a huge difference in Maya growing up and feeling loved and taken care of with everybody around her. I think this is like 80% of your worry. And the second you're pregnant, you start the life of being worried and being guilty, feeling guilty.
I was gonna say, how do you get to a point where you fully accept someone to take care of your child without the guilt or without the worry of are they doing it right?
This depends on I think the character of the mom. Some moms are hovering parents, some moms are helicopters, some moms are they learn to let go. But it's not a question of learning to let go. It's you have to be practical, and I was practical because I was overwhelmed with everything I needed to do and work and the twins and Maya's needs and her therapies and her doctors and her seizures, and there were days that she would sleep next to us and we would wake up on her seizure, you know what I mean? And خلاص you're doomed just to see it and to feel it مع انه هن they don't feel anything. بس انت نص حياتك نص عمرك بتروح. So I think it's how much you trust this person, this caregiver, and number 2, how practical you are in delegating and finishing all the other responsibilities you have, as well as this. But the guilt is constant.
There comes a point in every mother's life where she has to reconcile who she was before having kids with who she is now. For Leila, that moment of reckoning was inescapable. She had dreams, she had opened a new startup, and she was determined to make it work. But the reality of her responsibilities and priorities soon forced her to confront a difficult decision.
When she was 5, I remember I was sitting down, I think I was here and my mom was here and I was on the phone for work and I was on my laptop. And then my mom said, so every couple of months she's throwing this word and I'd look at her like, what? She'd be like, so how's the business going? I said, fine. And she said, are you thinking of doing any changes? And I said, no. And she said, well, don't you think you have a lot of responsibilities? I said, Mom, it's my 4th baby. I'm not letting this go. For me, I'm the entrepreneur, the businesswoman. I have to support my husband. Not knowing I'm drowning. So when she turned 5, my mom looked at her and she says, Leila, I got off the phone. She says, Leila, I think you really have to seriously think of what you want to do with the business. I said, Mom. And she says, I said, Mom, I'm home in the afternoons. She looked at me and she says, Leila, you're not home in the afternoon. You're here, but you're not here. And now you have to make a decision. You have Maya that is growing up, and there's a window that you might miss. It's your decision. And I thought, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be put in this situation. I don't want to make this decision. But it's in my face. With the way I was being stretched, and for the kids, and for, it was insane. لدرجة إنه أنا ما عادش تحملت يعني. And they saw me, I'm like falling apart يعني. And I had a talk about the stages that I went through to get to that realization and that acceptance, and I have to let go. Maya is my main responsibility. It's not about being a career woman, it's not about money, it's about her physical, mental well-being and health. And I think now when I look back, I was so afraid of this responsibility. I was so petrified of failing, you know what I mean, or of hurt. Like okay, when you're a mother and you have a child, بس هون المسؤولية كتير أكتر وكتير أصعب
and it's like you're gonna put everything in it, so
it's
like you feel even more of the weight
and then
with your work maybe you have an excuse.
I have an excuse and I have a responsibility somewhere else, بس أنا كتير خفت من حالي. I was so insecure about myself, and I didn't trust myself about being a specialist mom, because it was a field I didn't understand. Reem would tell me she has proprioception, all these terms. I was like, what does it mean? I want to love my daughter. I want to feed her. I want to give her a bath. Don't want to learn about proprioception and I don't want to. And خفت إنه طب بركي عن جد I failed. So then I realized إنه Leila, stop, okay, and stop this nonsense and stop this voice, and خلاص, you have to leave the business, you have to sell it, you have to do this cut, and then you have to go on to your next challenge. And then I realized that let me learn what it means. What does the field special education mean? I learned it with Maya and with doctors and the Excel sheets and the blood tests and all the therapists. I didn't understand the theoretical scientific part of what it means to be a teacher for special needs.
This pushed Leila to pursue a teaching diploma in special education. She felt it was the best decision she made as a mother, not necessarily to teach, but to better understand how special education systems function. The experience was empowering, not only for her, but also for her children, and she was honored when her peers chose her to give the graduation speech.
When I was practicing the speech at home, Soraya, who was maybe 7 or 8, was with me in the bedroom. I said, Soraya, sit down. I want you to act like you're the audience and listen. And Soraya was a very shy kid then. She was very bubbly and everything, but she was shy in school. So I said the speech to her, and then she said, Mama, can I tell you something? I said, what? She said, Mom, yesterday I had an Arabic class. In Arabic she doesn't talk a lot, تستحي. So وكانوا عم يحكوا عن الكتب story, وعم يحكوا عن الصفات الخارجية والصفات الداخلية لما بيحكوا عن a character بالقصة. And then so she said, Mom, I asked the teacher to speak when she explained this point. I said, really? والمعلمة بعدين قالت ليلى لما طلبت مني دغري قبلت معها ووقفت حدها لأ بدي أعرف شو بدها تحكي. She's talking. Yeah. So she got up and she said, أنا بدي أقول لكم إنه أنا أختي الصغيرة هي بمدرسة for special needs kids. وهاي المدرسة التيتا تبعتي فتحتها وهلا عمتي هي مديرتها. وأنا بطلع هاي المدرسة دايما لما عنا فرصة بطلع هاي المدرسة تساعد المعلمة تبعت أختي بالصف. وبس بدي أقول لكم إنه هونيك ما تخافوا من هول الولاد، يعني يمكن الصفات الخارجية يمكن تنقذوا منهم أو تخافوا منهم، بس هن الصفات الداخلية تبعيتهم هن كتير طيبين وهن كتير مبسوطين وهن ولاد كتير منيح.
This is an 8-year-old?
An 8-year-old. So she said this sentence and I felt I did the right thing. Something went well. And she got it. She got life. She understood everything about emotional intelligence. She understood it.
To translate what Soraya, Leila's daughter, said in her Arabic class that day, she stood up and told her classmates, I just want to say that my sister goes to a school for special needs kids. My grandmother opened this school, And now my aunt runs it. I always go there to help out, and I want you all to know you shouldn't be afraid of these kids. They might look different or seem scary on the outside, but inside, they are gentle, kind, and beautiful.
For me, this was my graduation.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And she understood the words and the behaviors that you can't teach, and you can't like draw in an image, and you can't act out.
Yeah.
She just felt it. So Suraya is a phenomenon, and there's a lot to say about the siblings of special needs kids. Because they miss out on some of the attention, and anyway, and since they were born, the twins were competing, and then Maya was born, so it took a whole other direction. So you feel, they all talk to me at the same time, even until now. They're 13 and Maya's nearly 12, and they always want my attention all the time. So I try to make it a point to do things with each one on their own, so they feel they have that one-on-one. And neither of them felt they lived a life with their parents alone until the next sibling came from the beginning.
Yeah. Oh my God. They've all been.
But the silver lining was the close age that Maya was to them, and how much she imitates them, and how much she wants to be like them sometimes.
There is something about talking to Leila that just automatically energizes me and fills me with hope. Her story has so many lessons and shows the importance that gratitude can have on our lives and our well-being. But what I learned the most from Leila is the significance of home and the people in it. Because when Corona hit in 2020, something unexpectedly beautiful happened for Maya.
She flourished more than
during COVID.
Because she was home. I feel she was home, and we were surrounded all together all the time. And she felt she's in the same system as her brother and sister and everybody else in her environment and her family, because she had online schooling, and she's not going to a school up in the mountains, different from her cousins and her friends and her family. I don't know, and because the brain started ما بعرف كأنه it started releasing all the skills that she had, or it was giving, I don't know what happened, but she became somebody else.
Wow.
She became somebody else, and how much she loves to dance. Something about her, even when she wasn't moving and she was always on the floor, would always put music for her. So there was some sort of movement. And in Steiner, they believe that any form of dancing or movement is a desire for the person to live. They want to move. And it's true, movement and dancing makes you feel alive.
Leila is one of the few moms I've worked with who has this inner peace regarding her daughter, and who isn't on this hamster wheel desperately trying to fix her. Which is ironic, considering that she was once a fast-paced businesswoman, nicknamed Speedy Gonzalez by her colleagues. But as we've heard, everything changed when Maya was born. In that shift, Leila found the strength to build a support system for both herself and Maya. And now, she's committed to doing the same for others.
So I don't see my challenge or my duty in pushing Maya more, and she's on that track. She's on that track, and the Zirka teachers are there. The whole family is there. The Step Together Beautiful family is there. Her friends are there. My friends and their children who are friends with Maya. She has all of these elements. So now I feel it's my duty to help other children in Step Together who need to find a way to stay in the school. Now I feel I want to help.
Purpose.
I want to help families. I've spoken to so many mothers I don't even know, but a mother would tell, listen, I know someone who is struggling, can you help her? So I've cried with so many mothers, I don't even know this. Sometimes I tell them, don't tell me your name, because they wouldn't want to, but they know me. And they would tell me, and we would guide them. Or I'd put them in touch with somebody important, or somebody specialized for them, or they'd come to the school, or we'd find a fund for them. I feel my duty is to help other families who are struggling financially to get on the right track for their children.
That's amazing.
It fell into place until I can't go anywhere else.
So what are you telling those moms? What do moms need to hear?
moms need to believe in themselves and make sure your relationship with your husband is strong. And it's going to be one of the, you have different sources of benzene and energy. A strong relationship with your husband is extremely important. Obviously, me and Omar had our ups and downs at the beginning with all the struggles. But we are a tremendous support to each other. Definitely the partner at home and the husband. And I know families and friends where the husband is not very supportive, and that's really, I think, to start it off as a family and you're a mother, the first person you need is your partner. And there were situations, I have a friend where he was brutal, he would blame her for the state of the really things that are unheard of. وما أنت الأم هي لما بيخلق هالولد she begins the life of guilt like never ever, because the denial and the guilt is, what did I do wrong, Like in the States, the doctor, when she was 3, sat me down and said, listen, whatever you're telling me you did in these 9 months that you were pregnant, you're nothing. I said, listen, I had a glass of wine on New Year's, you know what I mean? Because I was post-delivery or breastfeeding or كل شيء, so I didn't party. And then she said, she kept explaining to me, stop this guilt. Moms always have this guilt. So when you have a good relationship with your partner and you are supporting each other, you can go on to the next level. The next level is if you have family, like Anna, my mother and my sister, I can't tell you how incredible they were with me, with my kids, with Maya.
Did you teach them? Did you tell them how to be with Maya?
It happened naturally. There wasn't something, I was always there, but morally, emotionally, the way they were backing me up, were just there for me for anything, to handle me, to listen to me crying half the time, or being in a bad mood or snappy or whatever.
Whenever I speak to a mother, I always try to figure out what is the one thing that helped them the most on this journey. And for Leila, to me, it was clear as day. Without her husband's unwavering support, she and Maya wouldn't be where they are today. Thanks to her mom's and her sister's hand-holding and encouragement, she's able to stay strong for her children. Don't get me wrong, support never comes easy for anyone. But it is worth working on it, because often having a community and family can mean more than any therapy or intervention. And for Maya, it is that unwavering support from her parents, community, and family that she has the confidence and determination to keep on dancing.
They have to بدهم يحضنوكي انت وهذا الولد, or else you can't do it on your own. It's too much pain. You'll feel you're fighting the world on your own. And it's not fighting, but you're fighting for your child, you're fighting for them to survive, you know what I mean? Survival of the fittest, and your child will never be that strong. So it's like you create a team of bodyguards around them, Thank you. Happy to thank you, Lulu.
This was All Brains Grow. Thanks for joining us. You can head to allbrainsgrow.com/podcast for more resources and support. This show was produced and edited by Lina Fansa and myself, Lulua. Music by Blue Dot Sessions.